Welcome back to another episode of Unplugged, an IoT podcast. Today, we've got an incredible conversation lined up for you, full of insights that you're not going to want to miss. But before we dive into that, I want to take a quick moment to thank our main sponsor today, Smithtek. Smithtek specializes in turnkey hardware and software solutions, making remote monitoring and control a breeze. Whether it's agriculture, mining, industrial automation, or even environmental monitoring, Smithtek has you covered. Built right in Perth, Western Australia, their products are reliable, scalable, and adaptable to your needs, whether you're managing pumps, irrigation systems, or generators from afar. Plus, with their web-based SCADA system and support for a wide range of industrial protocols, integrating your systems is seamless. Their user-friendly interface gives you real-time control anytime, anywhere. If you're looking for a smarter way to manage your assets, Smithtek makes it easy and efficient. With that said, let's dive into today's conversation.
Welcome to Unplugged, an IoT podcast, where we delve into the fascinating world of industrial Internet of Things and automation. I'm your host, Phil Seboa.
Hello, Phil, and I'm Ed Fuentes. Well, Phil, today it's quite exciting again. We just keep rolling in our interesting guests, and today we have Freddie Coertze. He's the National IoT Business Manager at IFM, and I think you and I know IFM. I've definitely had a lot of experience with the IFM product, lots of stories there, but we're very interested in hearing about his experience in digital strategy around the last 11 years or so. We'll probably hear more about that, his Industry 4.0 and his IoT skill set. And Freddie works very closely with senior leadership, and he's quite good at impacting and showing and talking about digital transformation strategies and how that helps, definitely focusing on that sort of enhancing the asset visibility that definitely his knowledge has. So we're looking forward to having you here, Freddie. So thanks for joining us today, Freddie.
Thank you for having me, I guess. Yep.
I guess it's really impressive to see, we've seen you talk at so many different, events across Australia, and we'd love to hear a bit about how did you get into the IoT industry and your automation history. It'd be really interesting to really, dive deep into that.
Yep, to try and understand, I guess, I really do like to, make a big deal about IoT because I really believe in it. And I believe, this will really enhance our future with a lot of industries and all that. So that's why I've got such a passion for it, to try and, show up everywhere. But I guess maybe taking back where this all started, I guess it's all about maybe, if I can say, it came down to curiosity. As a child, I always was curious about how things would work and all that. And I was quite lucky because I had a dad that was in engineering as well. So he sort of brought home some sensors and some old PLCs from work, and we used to play around and nut around with it. I guess my curiosity never stopped from there. And I guess the biggest part of me, which I still use today, is if I can fix things if I understand how it works. I would always take something like a clock. If it doesn't work, I'll take it apart, understand every bits and piece, how it all goes together, and then I can help. And I guess that's one part of my career which really pushes me really hard of always having curiosity behind me. And I guess the other part is helping people by finding a solution to things is sort of what drives me. If I can do something and I can always sit back and say, oh, look at what we've created here. I help people, I helped industry, or I help insights, that's sort of what really drives me. But I think the pivot point in my career really was because when I completed my field and studies in engineering, especially in electrical field and also in electronics a little bit later on, I worked at a paper mill. And I guess working at a paper mill, you get exposed to a lot of things. I mean, we had obviously slow processes where I got exposed to a lot of instrumentation, DCS systems and all those things. But on the flip side, the fast-moving machinery as well, because there's a lot of fast-moving machinery of cutting paper and all those sort of things. So I got really exposed to a lot of things there. I think if I can think of one person that really pushed me really hard was our principal electrical technician there. And he really pushed us really hard. He used to put us in this lab room and then he used to tell me, look, Freddie, before you do anything in the plant, let's figure out stuff over here. And he will put a VSD or a drive in front of me. And he goes, Freddie, let's understand how this thing works. And I used to draw out block diagrams of understanding how RAM functions work and read the manual in and out, So it really helped us understand things, how it worked, not for the sake of just doing things. And I think that sort of stood by me all my career long, I understand not by just doing things, I want to understand why are we doing these things, to actually implement it quite better. And I think that really helped me, especially when I moved to IFM. Initially, I was a sales engineer for the big mining area in South Africa. I joined IFM over there. And sort of that drove me a little bit to help solutions in the mining industry to understand. But I quickly went to a limit, I'll say, in sales in a way, because I wanted my technical side to take over. And that's when I started to move into more technical roles. I look after the ASI systems that IFM supply. And I think that sort of gave me a renewed sort of, how would I say, passion of helping customers again, of, doing a solution with the ASI system for wiring and understanding and that as well. But I think what drove me from there onward was more the iLink technology. So I had the opportunity in 2015 when IFM first did our first iLink master. I was like, right, what do we do with this thing? I remember going in Australia with my little carry bag, just going around customers, showing them, demoing all the good benefits of iLink and all those things. And if I look at iLink now, it becomes sort of like a commodity to some extent. Everybody just wants iLink for the sake of that. And I think that was, and I really saw that iLink had, I think that's where the IoT sort of started coming up, because then really you could see that I still believe that iLink is the DNA of Industry 4.0, because that's where the sensors start giving you that insights or that data for you to make better decisions, basically on that. And yeah, slowly moved on. And I guess now from 2019 till now, it's the longest I've been in a role. And I think I've enjoyed it the most, because I've never grown so much personally and professionally in this role, because you learn new things. It's so exciting to be in an IoT sort of role. So yeah, that's sort of a history how I got to where I'm at today. So.
Awesome. I guess you mentioned, just to kind of dive deep into that, IO-Link. I mean, for our listeners that aren't quite aware of the IO-Link technology, can you give us a bit of a brief there?
Yes, so IO-Link in itself, if I can take a simple sensor like a proximity sensor, so a proximity sensor just picking up a target, I would say. So normally sensors would just give you a digital output on and off signals, or potentially just a 4 to 20 milliamp. And I guess that was good enough, but you couldn't get multiple process values. And we understood that, devices being used inside the sensor, the data was trapped inside. Instead of just getting now the on-off signal, now I can actually get true inductance through to my control system. So now I can detect things like wear and tear. Where is my target? So you can see how a simple sensor like a proximity sensor actually gives you more value. And moreover, it actually cuts down on sensor types as well, because you will have a typical mag flow, for example. And inside the mag flow, there's a lot of electronics in there to detect the flow rate, and give you your sort of different outputs. Because of that, now we can unlock all that additional data. Now we can get the flow, the temperature out of it, sometimes connectivities as well. You can get, also your digital outputs, but moreover, I think the signals that you get from it to understand the sensor health as well. Because now the sensor can record like the maximum pressures, or if there's anything faulty with the sensor, it can tell the control system, hey, something is happening. I'm not aligned anymore, or I need to be recalibrated. So I guess that smart sensor at the bottom becomes now a lot more talkative. And now we can get more insights from the sensor point. That's why I've got such a passion for IO-Link, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we're kind of seeing it also as a gateway to other IoT type infrastructure as well. I've seen some IoT sensors, that are converting IO-Link as well to MQTT, as well as a bit of a gateway to those other systems as well. So you can use the real-time sort of IO-Link structure to be able to then distribute it within the network, which is just pretty cool.
And I think to that point as well, because if you're having a product that's IP67 or IP69K, which you can put in the field as a gateway, is amazing for IoT, because you don't need to put a whole panel in there, and then adding all the bits and pieces in. It's just one device, hook it up to your Ethernet, and off you go. So it makes it easy.
I guess just to kick off, we want to talk a little bit about, asset visibility through IoT. Could you explain, I guess, what that means in the context of IoT and why it's important for companies to really start looking and gaining that competitive edge with asset visibility?
Yes, so asset visibility has been a big passion of mine to actually give those insights to the business so they can make more informed decisions. That's what we want to aim for. But I think to understand exactly the true benefit, maybe we need to take a step back and understand one thing first is what is a modern factory, or a digital factory as we call it. So I guess a digital factory in itself is a factory that uses information, autonomy, and also technology to obtain three common goals. And these goals is obviously to enhance safety inside the factory as well, and also to reduce operational costs, which most factories want to, especially being manufacturing in Australia as well. You've got to be competitive on a global scale in the global market. And that's the sort of message we always talk with our customers when we align our digital messaging with that as well. But then moreover on that is also gain better productivity of your plant as well. So if I can automate and digitize certain things and remove human error, I can be more productive, but also to understand where the bottlenecks is, to know where I should implement better solutions to actually try and help the process to obviously be more visible. But then it comes down to a tongue twister as well, because there's two processes in doing this, because one is a digitization and the other part is digitalization. And that's often two areas that most of our customers get stuck in. So digitization is pretty easy. Of course, that's the process of converting every information you've got to digital format, whether it's sensor data or whether it's someone walking with a clipboard, checking things, checking room temperatures, or those sort of things that you normally write on a board, trying to digitize that. But a lot of customers get stuck with the second phase of digitalization. So that's normally where the process of leveraging the data that you get from these devices then to improve your business and business processes. And I think the biggest goal there is we can agree that IT, if I take IT as one sort of group, they've evolved rapidly over the last few decades. If I can see what I can do now with my home automation, it's amazing. It's through the roof. But on the flip side, then if you look at like the automation technology in the OT world, that's been sort of siloed, and sort of stagnated a little bit. We have a lot of legacy control systems out there in a lot of our factories, especially in Australia. So now you think, how do I bring these two up to speed to basically bring data in? And why do we need data from there? Because I guess the IT world gives us everything, gives the company all the data they need, but all this valuable information from the process they don't have. So that's why we're trying to bridge these two worlds together with an IoT platform. Just saying, hey, let's leverage now the data you've already got in your control system. Let's marry that up to sort of the IT and then get the business insights so they can make better decisions. And then you can talk about sustainability goals, because if I want to know how much it costs to manufacture one single product and what was my carbon footprint, that sort of becomes into the play. So and that data is normally typically stuck inside our control system. And we need to get that data out, I guess, yeah.
No, that's good, Freddie. I want to probably go a bit deeper here with this topic, because for years this has been, industry knows they need better visibility of assets. It's definitely been working 30 years or so, and it's always been something key: vibration, safety. You mentioned all these key attributes, and the control system definitely has information it doesn't get across. And IoT seems to be a platform ready, but this is not new. We've absolutely brought in new protocols and new solutions, like you mentioned, IO-Link, which is quite strong in bringing more data. Talked about IoT, and I think the home automation or that space has brought even lower cost solutions. But so in having this, with the visibility, we know it's a problem. What are the challenges you're seeing? What are the common challenges you're seeing in people implementing this IoT for asset visibility, and how do we help them?
Yeah, look, I've seen multiple projects came to light and it was successful, and also projects that completely failed, But I guess to allude to your question is, I think the biggest problem, I would say, is a two-factor thing. So the first factor is obviously people. And I think that is the biggest problem in some areas, because you're changing the way people interact with information and changing the way they do their job on a daily basis. I mean, for me, sitting in an office thinking about a digital transformation is very easy. Do this, do that, everything is so cool. But now you would imagine, now you need to think of the operators. You need to think of everybody working and dealing with their daily job. Now you're changing the way that they are interacting and changing the way they're doing their job, which could be really daunting for them. So I guess by first of all looking at adopting them in the technology, but also bringing them on the journey, I guess it's number one. Then if I can look at the non-people factor, I think technology is as good as it is. It could potentially also break it for us, because even myself, I get anxiety if I go onto LinkedIn every day, because it's a new thing. There's a new protocol. There's new technologies coming out, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing with this? Where does this fit? How do I do? And I see the biggest failure rate is because customers jump onto something that's shiny. They have a little bit of an innovations budget and they go, right, let's look at for the next technology. Oh, I need wireless information. I need wireless sensors. And they go and buy all these devices. And they think this is so cool. They bring it back to the factory. And I said, right, what do we do with this? What problems are we trying to solve with this, And then they're thinking that they would get successful outcome from it, That is the biggest driver. And that's where we would see we need to swap that around to rather look at what are you solving? What is the use case you're trying to solve? And then go to Pandora's box and open it up a little bit and then pull out, whatever technology is feasible. Because I can tell you, I'm not against like wireless technology, but that's the latest trend these days. Every customer I talk to, I want wireless sensors everywhere. And then as soon as you talk to them, you're like, what are you trying to achieve? You know that wireless sensors has got their limitations as well. And as soon as you dig a little bit deeper, there's more to it. And say, maybe wireless is not the best. Maybe let's look at like a Bluetooth mesh or something different. So I guess the thing is customers jump, number one, onto something that's shiny and then hoping to fix a problem where we say, no, let's look at what you're trying to solve. And that's also the thing we normally see that customers look at other factories or maybe the neighbors next doors and see what have they used, but that's often not the right choice because every factory is like a fingerprint. Every company is like a fingerprint. Everything is unique to that company. So we need to dig a little bit deeper, and I think we'll talk about it later, is the digital strategy of what it entails, what you want to achieve. And if you don't know what you want to achieve, there's no off-the-shelf solution when it comes to digital transformation. You have to look at it and in the individual case, then take that on, understand what you want to solve, then apply the right tech that fits in that situation, and then push it out. So I'd say that is sort of the one part. And then maybe if I can just allude to is the positioning of the IoT platform is very important to me. So I guess we try and push as technology enthusiasts, if I can call us that, we try and push this IoT platform onto customers and they're like, where does it sit? What you're scaring me with these words. Are you going to disrupt my whole architecture? What are you going to do? So half my discussions is by just sitting down and understanding where to best place the IoT platform and what should it be connected to, plus who should own that platform as well. Because now you're talking about engineers and saying, look, this is my data. Now the IT guy is coming in. Who's going to take ownership? Is he going to take all my information from me, or should the engineer own the platform? So ownership is a big thing there, so that drives around. So those are the things that are coming into my head when it comes to adoption. And then, of course, there could be security questions as well. How does security fit into this as well? Because, there's a lot of hacks going on these days. You don't want to let people, log into your PLC mistakenly and stop your control system, for example. So there's a lot of these discussions that you have to really dig deeper to understand exactly the use case and how to best implement it and how to best position it as well. And that's why we see it as a journey. It's not just a one-off solution, walk away. We start from scratch, build a solution, and sort of, get the right people in the room and involve everyone, It doesn't mean that I should just talk to the engineer, talk to the IT guy, get him on board as well, get the operators involved, get the senior leadership involved as well to really adopt the solution, So
what are your thoughts around the data? How does that structured? How should you position that? Lots of data's coming in, right?
Yes, 100%. And I guess one thing that I enjoy about, just to comment on data, is that I enjoy about IoT is the openness of data and the openness of all the protocols we have. And I really think we're moving to an exciting phase where we are gone with the days that you would be buying to a certain supplier's sort of protocol or a certain supplier's sort of architecture. Now things should be open and be easily to share amongst systems. So I'm also part of the IoT Association of Australia. So I co-authored a paper there that talked about operability by design. So I guess when you talk about data structure, you've got to make sure that you set up your factory for future growth as well. Because, and also the thing is, not all of us have got the luxury that we've got a brand new plant that we're working on. We always got a legacy system as well that we need to integrate. So you've got to be aware of the fact that if you are doing that we've got to make sure we can onboard legacy devices, but also future-proofing yourself about the data as well. And look, and I guess it depends on the type of factory that you're dealing with or the type of engineer. That depends on how the data would look and where this would sit. But for me, an IoT platform should be a tool for the engineer that can enhance data, put it in the right format, and push it to where it needs to go, whether it's the SAP system, ERP systems, SCADA systems, etc., to sort of navigate that sort of route. So I'm not sure if that sort of answered your question there, Ed.
It's a continuous discussion, actually, Freddie, as you know.
Yeah, we're always looking, who are the stakeholders involved? How are they going to access the data? Is it an open IoT protocol that they're utilizing? Do they have access to it? I mean, we've always kind of struggled that. You mentioned the kind of brownfield world that we live in, right? We're always trying to, I guess, open up those proprietary layers, existing hardware solutions that are out there, right? They've been chugging along for the last two decades and producing some high quality, outcomes. The challenge now is that businesses are evolving to be, seeing data as their key value proposition within their business, right? They're trying to create these data-driven decisions, and you can't do that without data. That's the whole thing. So yeah, we're definitely seeing that as an evolution of the next phase of the control systems, of the business systems, having this business models structured around data.
And I always have a good story to tell people that know my presentations. I always like to tell a story. And what I always tell customers is, I don't know if you ever heard the washing machine story, the connected washing machine. Yeah. So I always go to customers and when we talk about data and, what you should use, I say to them, look, I know this one guy that his washing machine, packed up. And then he's like talking to his mates over a barbecue, say, hey, what is the best and latest and greatest in washing machine tech, And his mate said to him, look, you got to get this connected washing machine. This thing is out of this world, man. You get an app for it. You connect it. I can see how much load is in it. I can actually understand the water usage, all these cool stuff, man. I'm like, right, this is great. So it's a salesman's dream. He walks up to Harvey Norman or the likes. He buys the most expensive washing machine, man. I can tell you this guy's rep play. So he's waiting at home. Washing machine gets delivered. He goes, right, let's do this, Connects the washing machine up, downloads the app, and he goes in and he sits on his couch, like, let's do washing. And he downloads the app and he looks at all these things and he go, this is maybe fun for the first few minutes, but how ridiculous is it? I need a app to do my washing if I need to be in the same house if I'm doing washing. Plus, my washing machine has got this massive display that gives a jingle, when it's finished. I can set up everything on there. Look, I'm not against it, but what I'm saying is you should be use case driven. In this case, this guy never needed an app to do his washing. And that's what I'm saying, don't just jump to the latest tech. Make sure that we understand the use case and where the data should go and who should use the data, So that's sort of the analogy that I always try and use.
Yeah, I think you're talking about me. I really feel like that. I bought the latest connected washing machine, and the problem is the data is locked in the cloud, right?
True.
So yeah. I can't actually use the data that I wanted to integrate into my home automation system. So that is one of the challenges, right? You buy into a subscription model potentially, and unfortunately you don't have access to the data. But I guess my main hope for this connected washing machine is that it's feeding data to the manufacturer so they can make it more efficient for other end users as well. So, okay, I'm not getting the value out of the data, but I hope everyone else is, so you can thank me for my connected washing machine. I guess one section we have in our podcast is called the industrial anecdote. So, you may have visited a few sites over your career, or you've seen some really good applications out there. I guess, have you got a story that you could share of your experience on those particular sites, or an application that really stands out in your mind?
Yep, I can think of maybe, if I could share maybe two. I think I'll want to go part of the one side of the spectrum and then go back the other side. So one is a manufacturing example I can think of, and the other one is agriculture. One, because I think especially in Australia, agriculture and water was pretty valuable for us. I think that's why I wanted to mention that as well. And manufacturing, of course, is the other part of it. So I guess in the journey with this customer, it's a manufacturing industry customer. So with this customer, we've sort of had a long-term relationship with sensors and supplying solutions with this customer. So I think in my new role, I went back to him to understand exactly how we could help him. And I think the key driver for us there was more sustainability goals, in a way, is to understand compressed air usage in the factory. And I think that's normally, I'll see, the most overlooked energy that a lot of companies would not even think about to monitor, And for him, it was more like, okay, let's try and put some sensors in to understand my usage, how much compressed air my usage am I using in my factory, but also I may potentially have some leaks as well in the system to understand. And And normally you would walk into any site. I mean, I've been to many sites. You just hear the hissing sound of like compressed air all over, and then you think to yourself, well, that compressor is running almost 24/7. Is that really, what we want to do and all of that? So I guess what we did was we deployed a few sensors, but also in the same aspect, we said, look, since we are putting some smart devices on, let's look at maybe more condition monitoring of your overall compressor as well. And I think then we looked at maybe sizing the right compressor as well to understand. And then we did a bit deeper, and I'm not a compressor expert, but then we figured out with this customer that he said 70 to 80% of a compressor's lifetime is mainly energy or the power usage of the compressor. And then he showed me two different calculations as well to show, well, if your compressor runs on load all the time, and if I think about it roughly, the calculations was maybe $50,000 per year versus running, just idling, which is $2,000 per year. And they're saying that if your compressor's got a lot of leaks or your compressed air line, you'll obviously run in that $50,000 a year. But if you can get your compressor to like idle and pressurize the system, then you can get to a good goal. That was the goal of the experiment we're doing with the customer. But I think what was interesting, we actually had unrealized benefits from this. Of course, we realized it was leaks, all the typical things. But what actually realized, we deployed a smart AI model that looked at the system's behavior, like current. We looked at the kilowatts of the system as well, the flow, the pressure and air inlet and all of that. And one morning he walked up to site and then there was an alarm on the system. And he goes, this is very strange, why would I get an alarm on my compressor? And he jumped in and there was actually reduction in suction in the compressor side. And he goes, this is interesting. And what it was really something very simple. There was just a blocked filter. And he said to me, Freddie, this is amazing because now it actually prevented a failure. Because if I would have left this running, it would have maybe heated over time. And maybe the bearings would have taken a knock and slowly would have degraded. But here we've prevented really something from happening, something as little as that. And I think that was a really interesting journey with the customer because it started with one thing. And as we deployed sensors, like we said before, Phil, as you get more sensors, you can understand more with the data. And that's how we realized, hey, of course, there could be unrealized benefits when we got the data through.
Yeah. And you can see maybe different streams of data having crossovers that you wouldn't even know about.
I want to take a quick moment to thank our main sponsor today, Smithtek. Smithtek specializes in turnkey hardware and software solutions, making remote monitoring and control a breeze. Whether it's agriculture, mining, industrial automation, or even environmental monitoring, Smithtek has you covered. Built right in Perth, Western Australia, their products are reliable, scalable, and adaptable to your needs, whether you're managing pumps, irrigation systems, or generators from afar. Plus, with their web-based SCADA system and support for a wide range of industrial protocols, integrating your systems is seamless. Their user-friendly interface gives you real-time control anytime, anywhere. If you're looking for a smarter way to manage your assets, Smithtek makes it easy and efficient. With that said, let's dive into today's conversation.
100%, yeah. Because I mean, a lot of companies we know would typically just put a power meter on that and push it to like maybe a Power BI, and that's it. And you can see now by adding more sensors, even through the automation system, we could realize a lot more benefits with our data streams, like you say as well.
Yeah. And even like, I know compressors a little bit and they have air drying facilities on it, right? Because part of that compression is the byproduct is water, right? So, just understanding, okay, maybe the dryer needs to run a bit better or you need to change the filters, you'll get better performance out of that particular asset. So yeah, that visibility on that particular asset is going to be beneficial in ways that you don't even know at this point as well. So you mentioned a second, story.
Yeah, the second story is maybe a little bit of unrealized benefit as well, and that's why I'm so excited about these things. It was a large almond producer in Mildura. And for those that know the Murray River, of course, that goes a long way. So that's basically from Mildura all the way to Griffith. They've got like farms everywhere, and the main driver for them is to actually they've got more than 230 pump stations around the river to basically pump water out for irrigation purposes as well. And I guess the main driver for them is to look at reliability of their motors. That's sort of the main idea. And I guess the main reason is if obviously they don't get enough irrigation, then the fruit will go into distress and it won't produce fruit for like the next 2 years. So that's a really important asset for them. So the tree was the asset in this case. But I guess by doing that, we actually enabled safety of employees as well, because now they can plan their routes, because they had a contractor that used to drive from Mildura all the way to all these pump sheds and to, try and do spot checks on the motors and all that. And what we provided for them was just a big front end. And I think the challenges of this was really the distance between all these sites, because we had to use a combination of like 4G, radio links, different ways of getting data across to different areas and then to a data center. And then from there, where we would host the front end. And then with that, we just created a nice dashboard. And I mean, these guys are mechanical guys, they don't know anything about technology. It was so great just to build a dashboard for them with traffic lights, and they can optimize their routes. They don't have to go to every single site. And I think it also moved them from like a cycle similar to your vehicle. You would normally drive 15,000 Ks and service it. In this case, we say, look, you run your motor until we get a light that says something is wrong, you need to go and service it. So to optimize that lifetime. So it might be that if a different pump has been scheduled in the pump station, they may actually say, look, that's scheduled pump number 6, for example, because it didn't work as hard as pump number 1. So it really helped that scalability to understand the usage, but also in a safety factor for them driving all these distances to basically check pumps as well. So I think that was really good benefit in terms of technology versus like human interface as well. So.
And it goes here, Freddie, to the fact, like you mentioned earlier on, finding a problem, just finding out what it is you want to do, doing the research, find out some solutions, and get the data into the hands of the people who can do something about it. And then what do you know? You've got other unrealized benefits that happen. And we hear this story so often. And I suppose we can do these things now, Freddie, because definitely technology has helped. It's gone smaller, it lasts longer, it's much more reliable. We've got ways to get to present the data, right? If it's on an application or it's on a visualization screen, in a way that makes sense to the person who's capturing it. And I think they're great stories, and that's what excites Phil and I, that we hear, these sort of solutions that happen and, never hear about it, and bang, and then we're saving energy for air compressors because you're picking up errors early, stuff you didn't know. You're solving these people driving around. Now they've got information in their hands, that dream, that goal that people are after. I think, Freddie, you're in a really nice spot there where you are, because you're sort of working with an OEM, IFM, obviously, and also because you're in this field, you're seeing what's coming. You're playing with some interesting technology, and I'm sure you're seeing what's coming ahead. So how do you see it going ahead? It's worked well so far. What are the trends? What's going on that you can sort of let us know, let our audience know? What are the trends you're seeing?
And maybe what's also coming from IFM, right? And
Yeah,
you've got a product portfolio there that's pretty interesting and exciting.
Yeah, no, that's definitely right. And I guess if I can maybe just make a comment before I jump into that as well, I think it would really excites me if I look at my role when I moved into IoT sort of 2019 till now. I think I've grown as a person to have better conversations, but also I think industry has grown as well, because they adopted a lot more. And I can really see that initial barrier that was there, it's more free flow of information now. We can really get in for customers to understand the benefits of that as well. But I guess in what does the future hold and the trends, I'll maybe start with another analogy. So if I can think about Google Maps, for example, right? So what does Google Maps do for anybody that uses it? It makes people smarter. So, and I mean, back in the day, especially in the UK, I mean, you had these intense taxi drivers, they used to know, like the back of their hand, where to go, what's the fastest route to go everywhere, and all of those things. And what did Google Maps do for us, or just maps in general, online maps? It really helped us. You don't need to be an expert in what you do. You have a tool, like Google Maps, and now it helps you to make better decisions. Because, I mean, if I drive to my normal route to the office every day, I know where I'm going, but if I put my Google Maps on, it tells me where there's traffic jams, to optimize, to make that informed decision, So that's sort of the analogy I'm going with. And that's where I see IoT really heading towards, is creating tools for engineers or anybody really that doesn't have the right expertise. I wouldn't say the right expertise, but doesn't have all the expertise to create the solution. So it might be more an engineer wanted to do maybe more data science tools. then he needs a data scientist in his organization to help him with those things. So this is where we see the trend of more creating like these, digital tools that the engineer can use to then build an application. I mean, if you look at something like non-IFM, maybe something like Grafana, that's an excellent tool that you can use to build a front-end dashboard super quick, And these sort of tools, and that's where we see a lot of acceleration happening. And that's where IFM especially is focusing on, is really trying to create this toolbox. And you would have seen, for those that knows our software product Monia, we put a toolbox on it. So that's an engineer's toolbox, Open up your tools, you use the right tool for the right product. But I see a lot of trend these days, especially with an IFM, is the uptake of AI assistants, is creating tools or productizing, I'm saying very carefully, productizing AI or machine learning into a tool that you could use to solve problems with, And that's sort of where we see. So we see now a tool coming out that's like a pattern monitoring tool. So I can give this to any engineer. You can just go through a 5-step wizard, and he can push his data in there, and then this tool will automatically, look at some patterns in the data, try and recognize certain things in the data. So it's really helping, just our standard engineers today, to be a bit more, hands-on with the data. But also then we've got something like a smart limit watcher, which basically looks at correlation between certain data sets, So and then we've got something like a lifetime estimator that can actually look at the condition of the machine and how long it is for that failure rate. Because I guess that's the biggest problem. Vibration equipment today is good enough, but vibration is a good indication for me that says the machine has already started to degrade. It's inevitable. You've got to change the motor. You've got to overhaul the bearing. But we want to go is we want to pull that a little bit forward. So if I can make a graph of maybe your machine condition over time, and if you see your machine condition degrading slowly, obviously vibration is a good indication, then obviously temperature, etc. But we want to push that lever a little bit up, and before the machine starts to take damage, like my example with the compressed air system, you want to know exactly before that happened. And to allude back to that example, that took a standard engineer without data science experience to deploy a model himself to get the right data sets in to be able to do the prediction with. So I think that's sort of the good part that's exciting, especially in the industry, where we can see the IIoT, not just IoT, the industrial, customers taking on these tools to become a little bit more successful. So that's sort of the area that we're focusing on. But then we also struggle in the second part is with the cloud solutions as well, because everybody wants to jump to the cloud. People want to be on premise, to understand what is the best sort of leverage on using the cloud or a hybrid or those sort of things. So that's sort of the future that we're looking at and the trends that we see a lot of customers are dealing with. So
it's really exciting to hear about this distributed AI model, right? Where you're doing AI as close to the edge as possible. So then you can feed that information into other IoT type platforms as well. So you're pre-preparing all this data, giving insights right at the edge. And, that compressor analogy or, example really kind of showcases that. And if you can get the tools in front of the people that need to make those decisions, they can do it with more efficiency. They don't have to go through, any cloud infrastructure. They can have localized AI models now to be able to make those decisions really quickly. It's really exciting stuff.
Yeah, and I guess years ago, when I spoke to customers about IoT, let's collect everything. Every data I could, just dark information, and everything just goes as big data, And I'm like, what are we trying to achieve here? Well, this helps us qualify the data. So like you say, we get the right information at the right time to make that informed decision, So that's sort of the main driver.
I guess we've talked about a few of the steps that we might take towards, implementing these technologies. Maybe you can highlight and go through what are those fundamental steps that will be enhancing, their journey and creating this visibility for them and really ensuring the value that they're getting.
Yes, so I would say that the journey starts, and I think we need to move away from this analogy or this how would I say, the idea of that we have to spend millions to create a solution. And I think if you talk to a lot of companies, as soon as you talk a little bit about IoT or Industry 4, they think, oh, there we go. It's a bottomless pit of money. Let's just throw everything we have at it, And also the biggest problem there's no end time to this journey, because I could start a proof of concept. And by the way, I I hate the word proof of concept because that doesn't do anything for me. I'm all for proof of value. We need to understand what are we proving the value out of it. So, and I've seen so many proof of concepts fail just because of that, because there's no value in it. And I guess by saying, I think I alluded to a little bit in the beginning as well, is that we need to understand that each factory is different. We need to understand in the actual use case and what is your bottlenecks to understand. So maybe I can use a little bit of a use case. So we work with one of our dairy companies. And for them, it was also free. I don't know where to start. What do we do here? What's the first step? And I said, look, let's try and just put some sensors on your main lines. Let's try and understand your production rate, understanding what you're doing. So what we did was we just put a small little sensor on to detect how many packets was manufactured of cheese, how many boxes you push out in a day per shift, and also then how many rejects have you got, And that ran and it was a really inexpensive solution. I mean, I'm not quoting numbers here, but it was definitely under $2,000, to deploy the solution, which is very, very good in a way. And then with that insights, then we could understand, and it was amazing to realize benefits was that we saw that certain shifts was doing better than other shifts. And it was saying, why is this? It's the same equipment, it's the same machine. And then I identified it was actually a training problem, that the one shift knew how to operate the machine better than the other shift, So simple things like that. So I would say, in a way, I always have this mental note of start small and then grow, as you know. So I would say start small, figure out what you want. What is your immediate need today? What is the biggest bottleneck? What is the most expensive equipment in your factory or in your line? Put sensors on it and start monitoring that. And then as you then get information, you may change your mind. But as you get that information, you should be agile enough, I guess, to grow and change, Because I saw the biggest issue that I saw a lot of clients, they would pay, top dollar for a big rollout of equipment and maybe of a platform, and then all of a sudden realize, well, I'm not using this platform, I'm using all this data, I may want to do it differently. So we'll say, well, look, start small, start with one part of your plant, and then grow as let the data make the decision. In that case. So that's sort of a little bit, but in aligning that with some strategies as well, I guess we'll talk about that as well. But I guess just involving everyone, that on this journey, because sometimes we feel like if we just talk to the engineer, it's good, but it's not good, because you just isolate, the whole company with one person. You got to get everybody on this journey. That's the biggest benefit.
That's good, Freddie. I like how you say they start small, and I think that's very important. And I love the phrase "grow as you know." That's excellent. And that's the part that people don't realize, that you don't know everything when you start.
Yeah.
But the important thing is to start. Start within the budget. Start with solving a problem. I think you mentioned that already. And definitely IoT solutions definitely help out in that. Now, Freddie, through our talk today, you mentioned a couple of things. You mentioned digital strategies and digital transformation, digitalizing. You mentioned a few things, IoT solutions. So help us to align all this together. How do you align digital transformation strategies, initiatives with IoT solutions just to get the maximum value for customers? Tell us through that.
So I'll maybe start with something a bit controversial. So I would say we have to be mature enough to say, no, this will not work. Because I guess that's the biggest problem, owning up and saying, look, and being honest with ourselves, the solution that we're implementing is not going to give us any benefit. Because I've been through customer journeys, I've been through a lot of projects that people would just say, look, let's just push through. I'm sure it will work. No problem. We are going to solve this problem. And eventually then we get to a point where the whole project fails. So I've made myself a promise, to be mature enough, and even customers saying, look, there's no business case here. You're not solving anything. Why would you want to do this? Maybe it doesn't make sense from a sales point of view, but from me personally, we've got to be honest with ourselves and saying, look, this is not going to give your company any benefit by doing this, And I guess if you're not honest with yourself, then you'll go down this road of like implementing technology, spending a lot of money, trying to prove the benefit, and then eventually ending up saying, look, this was not good enough. And we had some customers where they've implemented solutions, and years later we go to them and say they haven't even opened up the software anymore. And that tells me that we've never solved the problem in the first case, So I guess by starting with that, it sort of set the baseline of what I want to talk to you now about is digital strategies is so important, And I guess depending on what level or layer you're talking to in your organization, I always try and understand who should be involved next on the next step of this journey on the project? Is it the senior leadership? Because obviously senior leadership, it needs to align with the goal as well from the senior leadership. So I'm taking a typical big organization would obviously have sustainability goals. So if you have the sustainability goals, then that's a good trend to go on, because that's sort of a strategy the company has set. And then from that, then we can go, as you peel the onion, go lay it a little bit deeper. What does it mean for the automation? What do we need to implement? What sensors do we need to achieve that goal by having the whole system in? So in saying that, is what I typically would drive for is that if we implement these IoT projects, we need to make sure we get all the right people in the same room, get senior management in there, get your IT team on board, get the users that is going to use the system on board and talk it out. Make sure that everybody is on board. It's not a single person, a single business unit driving something forward. It is a whole business. And I think that really excites me about IoT is a collaboration between departments. I mean, I've seen successful projects where departments has been broken down in their silos. And now they are collaborating, actually sharing information, which is something really exciting with the human factor in there as well, that they are actually sharing information now, and they could actually see the benefits of this, And I guess by doing that, we then align the solution to as I said, to the ultimate strategy, and that really ensures success, because we are then providing the right data to the right person, to the right platform, whether it's SAP, whether it's ERP systems, to make that sort of decision in that case. So.
Yeah, I think without a digital strategy in place, with all the, you're really doomed for failure, really. IoT is great, the technology is available and that enables the digital strategy. But if you don't have that in place and you don't have all the stakeholders on board, you're really doomed for failure, unfortunately. But that's the realization that we have to make.
Yeah, I think you hit that nail on the head, Freddie, earlier on when you said that this digital strategy is journey. It's not an endpoint, is it? You got to start, and it's continuous. And like you said, as you grow, you grow. You build more on it, and that was really good. In your journey, Freddie, obviously we can tell you've mentioned it before that you've learned a lot. You've grown a lot in this role. You've been learning so much. Learning new applications. So if we go, Phil and I, we're constantly learning. That's our life mission. I mean, just keep learning and learning. So what are you focusing on? What are you going to be learning? What's your goals and your learning goals in this space?
That is good, yeah. And I guess maybe to add as well, with IoT, I've never stopped learning, To some extent, my previous roles, especially automation and control systems, you get to a point where you walk around with the cape, I know everything, this is me, but I guess with IoT, we never know everything, it's ever evolving. There's new ways of doing things and new softwares, new, data streams, and it never ends. So for me, my next phase of learning, I guess it's obviously completing that journey all the way from coming from the sensor, I would say, all the way from the shop floor to the top floor. And what I mean about that is getting the sensor data through the ERP system to the SAP, and then making that informed decision autonomously, which I am super excited about. So I'll give you a few use cases for that. So one use case would be typically, if I talk still about condition monitoring of an asset. So that'll be, instead of relying on someone walking around, hearing a motor screaming, and then making a ticket in SAP. Now we'll see an ideal world where this data would automatically be fed into the right systems, going through to the SAP, creating a maintenance ticket in SAP PM. Then it will automatically go to the warehouse, going, right, do we have a spare for this motor? Do we have a pump that we can add on? When is the right time to stop the production? Because we have information from the ERP system as well. When is the best window? Yeah, like I said, to stop the machine. But what resources do we need to get in this place? Maybe there's a shutdown coming in 2 weeks. Maybe we have the right resources, but maybe we don't have the pump to make automatic order. I hope in the future to automatically order the right motor, the right pump, to make sure we've got everything on site without any human interface. That is one example. The other example would be, obviously, I'll maybe use a smaller example, which may be a chemical tank, like an ICP tank. Let's say a particular company would use a chemical tank, and we measure the level of this tank. So normally, if this chemical will start to run out, normally people would be notified, or someone will walk around, the chemical is empty, I've got to buy a new one. But in this case, we will automatically get that decisions made in SAP, from the sensor level to know exactly, right, this is getting to a low level. Do I have one in stock? Yes, no. Let's order one. Make sure we got the right one in stock. So I guess that's sort of the journey that I'm pushing towards. And we really saw a little bit of uptake, I'll say, in America, and also in and especially in Germany, maybe the UK, a few examples. But that's something that I strive for Australia. I really think that's the next part, especially where labour is so expensive in Australia, and also if we're competing on a global market with our manufacturers, they need to really be cost down to the bone. If you can automate these things, then I'll say we are winning. But also then we shouldn't think that takes over jobs as well, because it just automates a lot of things for people to do other things, So we shouldn't be scared of that talk as well. But yeah, I guess that whole, if understand coming from the sensor level all the way to the top floor, that's sort of the idea. And that's what I'm super excited about.
Well, we're definitely seeing the drive for this lights out manufacturing, warehousing, intralogistics, connected supply chain, this interconnection between the OT layers and the IT infrastructure is definitely happening. So you'll be excited to know that, we're already there almost as well. So it's super exciting. We're super, looking forward to learning all about, where we will be going in the very short term, because that's the thing. In the last 6 to 12 months, we've seen the launch of large language models, the adoption of AI, and all these different technologies being kind of taken on and run with. Freddie, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. Your insights in asset visibility and digital strategies has just been incredibly valuable to our audience.
Thank you so much for sharing everything, Freddie, today. Your expertise, your knowledge, your passion definitely comes through, and I'm sure our listeners are going to take plenty of actionable insights today from this episode. Thank you.
And don't forget to subscribe to our Unplugged and IoT podcast for many more episodes with industry leaders and innovators. Thanks for tuning in today. Thanks, Freddie. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks. It's nice to talk to you all.